And this video is sponsored by Squarespace, a place where you can go and get all of your creative ventures on the internet. I'm just joking. This video is not sponsored by Squarespace. I just wanted to say that. I've watched so many videos on YouTube that have shared that they're being sponsored by Squarespace. Maybe one day in the future, but this video is not sponsored by Squarespace. I am here today really to share with you about a new camera that I've had for a while now. So it's kind of more of a first impressions of this new camera. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I liked, a couple of things that I didn't like. But the camera that I'm talking about is the Fuji 645 GA645 professional medium format point and shoot camera. I have had this camera. This is actually the last thing that I bought in 2020 randomly. And I've had it for a while and I've been like just shooting with it ever so often. But recently in 2022, I took this on a trip to Disney with my family. And I solely shot this and one other camera, my Leica M10, as my digital option for when it got too dark to shoot this. And I want to kind of share with you guys a couple of things that I love about this camera and a couple of things that I don't. The first thing that I want to say is I'm always keen on not buying new gear if you don't need new gear. I have an uncontrollably large amount of medium format film cameras. What am I talking about? Medium format film that I needed to shoot through. And I was looking for something that was going to help me shoot through it a little bit faster than my Contacts or my Mamiya AFD or my Mamiya 6. So I went out and I was searching for a point and shoot. And also, when you are dealing with young children, like I have 3 young boys who are constantly moving. I needed something that was a little bit quicker than just manual focusing. Although there's nothing wrong, I can capture my boys manual focusing. I do that all the time with some of my other camera work. But on a trip like Disney, I wanted to make sure that I had something that was able to capture their expressions quickly and that I could, just have like memories shot on film and something that wasn't heavy. These were all the categories that I wanted in this camera. I wanted something that wasn't heavy, something that had autofocus, something that was small and light and didn't weigh me down as we were walking like 10 miles a day around Disney. And I wanted something that was going to give me a relatively unique feel and look. So when I look back at these photos, I would know that it was shot with this camera. Now, there are a lot of things that I love about this camera, and I want to go ahead and tell you. The first thing is just how compact and lightweight. To be 100% honest, I was actually really, really shocked at how lightweight this camera is. And with my Mamiya 6, one of the things that I loved about it is like how the lens retracted into the body, making it even smaller. So you can kind of slip it in to like my wife's purse if I needed to, or if I wanted to carry it around my neck. As you can see, I can carry it around my neck pretty easily. I have the Peak Design straps on it. One of the other things that I liked was not only how small and compact it was, is that the lens is actually extremely underrated and it produces a lot of magnificent images. I was like really surprised at how well this camera and how sharp this lens was. And I don't even care about sharp images. That is literally my least thing that I'm concerned about when I think of a characteristic of a lens that I'm concerned about. You may be different. One of the other things that I liked is that it is a portrait frame orientation. meaning that when you bring this camera up to your eye like this, it shoots in portrait and not landscape. So it checked that box of having a unique camera that took unique images, versus if I wanted to shoot horizontal, if I wanted to shoot images like this, I would get the landscape form images, and you just have to hold it. Now, it does take some getting used to. It's not that really different than how you would take any other camera. Just the orientation is different. Now, I can say I typically shoot my frames in portrait mode anyway. I'm constantly taking my regular camera and shooting it like this because I just like the way that looks more so than I like the way that this looks. But this camera has it in portrait frame orientation only, and you can shoot it in landscape if you chose to. One of the things that I also liked a lot about this camera is the focusing and metering are kind of spot on. Anytime you're talking about a camera that was made in the 90s, that's essentially made of all plastic, is that these cameras fail all the time. Not this particular one, but cameras from the 90s that were made of like this hard plastic. But the metering and the focusing on this was actually really, really great. Now there's a little box that kind of frames your image, so you can kind of know how it's framed up. I can say mine works about 90% of the time. I don't know if it's user error or if it's me, but my framing was slightly off on a few images. Nothing super drastic or anything like that, but that was one of the issues that I had. Now this is I want to share a few things about what I did not like about this camera. I didn't like that it was all plastic. It feels, although it's like this hard plastic, it feels kind of cheap. The other thing that I didn't like is I did not like this little plastic. I don't know if you can see that there. Little plastic latch. I wish it was metal, because sometimes I feel like when I'm trying to open this camera up that I'm actually going to break that off. The other thing that I wasn't super crazy about was how loud this lens is when you turn it on. Now, if you're used to like turning on any modern day camera, they're super quiet. This is loud. It's not a game changer, but it is loud. I've shot plenty of photographs in the park of people, of my kids, and they didn't even really realize that I was taking a photograph. So it is loud, but it's not like super like noticeably loud. I think this is a common complaint that you see with this camera, is how loud it is when you turn it on and when it focuses. Let me see. You can hear that? That's pretty that's pretty loud when it focuses, but it's, it's okay if you're in a crowded area and you're shooting people, or if you're shooting street. You can kind of get away with something being loud if you're in a loud place. Now, if you're trying to be sneaky, it's not going to, you're going to be noticed shooting this camera if you're in a quiet area, but not so much if you're in a loud area. The other thing that I liked and that I wish was, it's like it was a like and a dislike, is that the camera straps holds it kind of sideways. I wish there was like another lug on this side so you can kind of carry it this way versus carrying it that way. It's just one of the many quirkiness about this particular camera. I will say this, that sometimes I'm always a little afraid. This is a kind of a dislike, and kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier also about the focusing, is sometimes the parallax correction focusing mechanism that is in this camera, sometimes it moves and sometimes it doesn't. The frame lines are actually super, super bright, so that's a love about that. But I wish that it was that it moved all the time. And it is just kind of like one of those things. So this is like old technology, and I have to just remind myself all the time that this is not new technology in 2022. This is technology that was new in the 1990s. Now, those are a couple of small drawbacks. The other thing is that this lens only goes up to an f4, which is plenty fast enough when you're shooting medium format. But if you're shooting 100 speed film, you really have to just be cognizant of what film you have in your camera at what time. So if you're losing light quickly and you have something that you are overexposing a stopper to, this probably isn't the best camera to use because it only goes down to f4. I wish it went to an f.28, but it doesn't. But again, it's fine. One of the other really weird things that about this camera that's kind of weird, again, not a deal breaker, is sometimes when you're changing the ISO or the f-stop on this, the LCD here jumps back and forth to, like, sometimes if I'm trying to set it at f4, sometimes it'll jump to f5.6, sometimes it'll jump to f.8. You just have to be really kind of, when you're turning this kind of like one stop all button for when you are changing your f-stop, that it is kind of what it is. So you can kind of see as I'm kind of turning this dial here, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Is that, oh, it's not doing it now. But of course, when I was out shooting with this, it was doing it absolutely all the time. I wish it was a little bit more finicky. You just have to kind of be cognizant of what you're shooting and how you're shooting. And when you're setting your ISO, that you are setting it to the right ISO, and that when you are setting your aperture, that you are setting it in the right mode, or the right aperture. So this camera also does have a program mode, which means the camera will just do all the work for you. You don't have to do anything. It also has the aperture priority mode, which is a mode that I like because I prefer to just shoot it all at f4 and move my exposure compensation how I like, or my film, set my film speed how I want, so that way I know exactly what my film is going to kind of look like. And it also has a manual mode where you set the aperture and you set the film speed, and based upon what the camera meter says, sometimes you can make adjustments. But like I said, the LCD screen is super jumpy when you're making those changes at times. So I probably would never really shoot this in manual mode. Aperture priority mode or program mode, which is pretty much automatic mode, is really all that you need for this camera. But that is one of the things that I wish was slightly different. Now, my overall thoughts, first impressions of this camera is, it is amazing. It's a great camera. It's portable. It hits all of the things that you're going to want in a point and shoot medium format camera, which there are not a ton of. There may only be a handful. The Fuji 645 GA or GA645 is one of the handful of cameras that shoots medium format and kind of shoots it kind of like a point and shoot. It's kind of a dinosaur and a relic of a time where camera manufacturers were pumping out a lot of different types of cameras, trying to figure out what would stick and what wouldn't. This camera is definitely a camera that I'm proud to own and that I shoot with somewhat on a regular basis. I'm going to do a much longer review of this, but I kind of just want to kind of give you guys just some of my first impressions, show you a few images that I've shot with it so you can kind of see and get an idea of what this lens looks like, how it renders images. I'm going to share with you guys also the different film stocks that I used. A lot of Portra 800, a lot of Portra 160 at 100, Portra 800 at 400, and I even shot a couple of Portra 400 and Fuji 400Hs through this body while I was at Disney, and a few other images here and there. But it is really something that has actually gone up in price recently, just like everything else has gone up in price. But it is still relatively cheap entry level camera. If you're thinking about getting into medium format, I would definitely recommend it. I would give it 2 thumbs up. If you're looking for something that's kind of basic that you don't have to think a lot about. And to be 100% honest, at the rate that medium format cameras are going up, I would try to pick up one of these as soon as possible. Now they are going to be prone to break, and it may become just a brick at some point in time, but you know, let's be honest, all cameras eventually that were made in the 90s or the 80s, they're going to break and you're not going to be able to repair it. So I would just say if you're going to buy one, make sure it's in good working condition, and just enjoy the experience. Now, I like to share all of my videos. I like to just say this about all of my videos, that this camera or no camera that I review is ever going to make you a better photographer. It's not some magic pill that's going to make your images better. It can make the experience more enjoyable, but the goal really is to just go out and photograph with the equipment that you have, and just go out and create. It's like not to get so wrapped up in the gear, to get more wrapped up in creating. And sometimes we buy tools, cameras, that helps us see the world differently. They can spark some excitement, but it's not going to make you a better photographer. Only taking more photographs will. That's all I got for you guys today. I just kind of wanted to share some initial thoughts about this particular camera with you. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great one. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like this channel, I would love it if you would subscribe. And if you don't, no big deal. I appreciate the watch, and I hope you guys do well. See you on the next one. Peace.
It's dangerous to go alone.